I've always believed that if you look too hard for something, you're bound to find it, even if it was never there to begin with. And for most of my marriage, I clung to that idea like it was gospel. I gave Madison space. I gave her trust. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, even when things felt off. But that belief started to unravel one ordinary Wednesday afternoon. It was a typical midweek blur, emails, back-to-back calls, half a sandwich in the car. I was working from home, and around lunch, I opened our shared Google Calendar to double-check if we were still good for dinner with her parents that Friday. That's when I noticed the new event she'd added. Client meeting, Bristol Cafe, 3:30 p.m. Nothing unusual on the surface. Madison works in branding and client relations. Cafe meetups are part of her world. I almost clicked away. But something about it, maybe it was the location, maybe it was the timing, made me pause. Bristol Cafe. Not the type of place she usually takes meetings. It's a small, cozy, kind of trendy spot near the historic district. More vintage armchairs and warm lighting than business deals and espresso sh*ts. I'd been there a few times with her. It's where we had lunch after the first time we went house hunting. It's the kind of place you go to slow down, not pitch campaigns. And yet, client meeting. I didn't want to be that guy, the suspicious husband who follows his wife around. But for reasons I still can't fully explain, I couldn't let it go. So I went. I told myself I just needed air, that I'd grab a coffee nearby, that if I didn't see anything strange, I'd go home and forget the whole thing. At 3:25, I parked half a block away and walked the rest of the distance. The cafe's tall front windows made it easy to see inside. A few tables were occupied. College students hunched over laptops, a couple quietly reading, two women chatting near the fireplace. And then I saw her, Madison. She was sitting at a two-person table by the back window. Not alone. Jason was with her. Our neighbor. He lives 2 doors down. Early 40s, divorced, runs some kind of design business. We've shared backyard beers during neighborhood block parties. He's been in our house. He borrowed my drill 3 months ago and never brought it back. They were leaning in close, heads tilted just slightly toward one another, like they were in their own little soundproof bubble. Madison was laughing. Not her polite work laugh, but the one I hadn't heard in weeks. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Their body language said everything. His hand brushed her wrist once. She didn't move it. Her eyes lingered on his when he spoke. She touched her hair the way she does when she's nervous or excited. But what locked my feet to the sidewalk was the box on the table between them. It was a small, navy blue rectangle. Velvet. The kind you get from a boutique jewelry store. I squinted, heart pounding, and that's when I saw the cufflinks. Men's cufflinks. Shiny. Probably custom. And then I saw her pull out her card, her personal card, the red one with the gold trim, and pay. She smiled while signing the receipt. I stepped back. My chest felt tight, like the air had thickened around me. I suddenly felt stupid for being there, for even needing to see it with my own eyes. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I felt numb. I got in my car and just sat there with the engine off, watching the cafe door like it might spit out a different version of reality. She stayed for another 15 minutes. When they stood to leave, Jason placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her out like it was instinct. And maybe it was. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on the radio. Didn't take calls. I just gripped the wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to the moment. When she got home 2 hours later, Madison breezed through the front door like she hadn't just detonated a grenade in my chest. "Hey, babe," she said, dropping her bag by the kitchen island. "God, I'm starving. Did we ever buy more almond butter?" "Should be in the pantry," I said, without looking up from my laptop. She chatted while making a smoothie. Told me her meeting had gone long, how exhausting the client was, how she had to scramble to buy a last-minute gift for his promotion. "He's getting married next month too, so I figured cufflinks were safe," she said, sipping from her straw. "I charged it to the company card. Might not even get reimbursed, but whatever." "You paid for his gift?" "Just a small thing." It was one of those weird situations where everyone forgot to bring something and I was the only woman in the room. So, She trailed off, shrugged. You know how it is. She never mentioned Jason. Never said his name. Later, while she was in the shower, I walked by her coat tossed over the living room chair. Something white peeked out from the pocket. I pulled it out. Bristol Cafe napkin. No note, no writing. Just a perfectly folded square like it had been placed there on purpose. I didn't even know they used cloth napkins. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down, silent. I leaned down to kiss her after she fell asleep, and that's when I smelled it. Faint, but definitely there. Cologne. Not mine. It wasn't overwhelming. It was subtle, like someone had leaned in close. Maybe hugged her. Maybe more. I went downstairs and sat in the dark for almost an hour. There wasn't a single piece of undeniable proof. Nothing I could wave in front of her and demand an explanation for. But every detail felt intentional. The cafe, the cufflinks, Jason, the napkin, the cologne. And yet, when I asked her about the meeting again the next morning, lightly like I hadn't seen anything, she stuck to her story, smiled while buttoning her blouse, said she was behind on emails and really stressed about Q3 projections. And that was it. She changed the subject. Just like that. No guilt. No stumbles. No trace of the woman who used to tell me everything. It's strange how fast you can go from feeling secure in a relationship to feeling like a stranger in your own home. One minute you're making dinner plans, the next you're studying receipts and checking the laundry for foreign scents. After that day, I stopped telling myself it was all in my head. Because once the seed of suspicion is planted, it doesn't just grow quietly. It thrives in silence. And Madison had stopped explaining. The strange, looking back. The things you shrug off in the moment. Small inconsistencies, fleeting looks, harmless white lies, become massive once you've seen the full picture. It's like remembering a dream that suddenly reveals itself as a warning. Except this wasn't a dream. And the warning signs had been there all along. I just hadn't wanted to see them. After that day at Bristol Cafe, the pieces started falling into place whether I liked it or not. The phone. That was the first real shift. Madison used to leave her phone everywhere, on the kitchen counter, plugged in by the bed, sometimes even forgotten in the car overnight. But slowly, subtly, it became an extension of her hand. She started flipping it face down by default. No big deal at first. Everyone does that sometimes, right? But then it was every time. Even when we were just watching a movie or having dinner. Then came the silences, notifications no longer making sound. Texts answered with a turned back. Calls taken on the balcony or in the garage. First, I chalked it up to work. She'd said her team was onboarding new clients and that the hours were stretching. I believed her. Of course I did. I wanted to. But those work calls never had names. Never had specifics. When I asked, she was vague. Client onboarding, strategy realignment, presentation prep, corporate mad libs. Then there were her runs. Madison's always been a runner. She finds peace in it. But they started getting longer. Much longer. She'd leave before sunrise and come back sweaty but not breathless. Refreshed in a way I couldn't explain. I'd ask how it went. She'd shrug and say, same route as usual. But her Apple Watch route didn't match up anymore. Not that I was digging intentionally, not at first. But one morning, her phone was charging next to mine, and her run summary popped up as a notification. Route, Riverside Trail. That wasn't same as usual. That was a 25-minute drive across town. Her excuses came with less effort now. Like she didn't need to sell the story as hard. The more I noticed, the more I remembered. There was the lipstick. A deep wine red shade she started wearing that I'd never seen before. It appeared suddenly like a signature. But only on days she left the house late or came back even later. She said it was a client-facing presentation thing. The heels too strappy, black, expensive looking. I didn't even recognize the box they came in. I asked her about them when I saw the packaging near the trash. And she said, oh, those? Got them on clearance online. $40. I didn't push it. I should have. Then there was the portable charger in her bag. Weird detail, I know. But Madison's never been a gadgets in her purse type. She hates clutter. One afternoon, She left her tote open on the dining table while grabbing something from the car. I was passing through, and my eye caught on a sleek charger I'd never seen before. Brand new, top of the line, the kind of thing someone might give as a gift. But the real kicker? A tiny key. Attached to her keyring was a small silver key I didn't recognize. Not a house key. Not one for the office or car. I asked about it casually. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough to register. "Oh, that," she said. "That's for the storage unit. I've been keeping old campaign samples there. For portfolio stuff. We don't rent a storage unit." I checked the bank statements that night. Nothing listed. It was like chasing shadows in your own home. Everything looked familiar until you tilted your head just enough to see the cracks. She laughed differently too. Sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but it's true. Her laugh used to be loud, unfiltered, sometimes snorty when she was really amused. But lately it had become smaller, contained, like she was trying to keep something just for herself. I noticed it most when she was on the phone. If I walked into the room, she'd either end the call or switch to a colder tone. Sometimes she'd pretend it was a telemarketer, which didn't even make sense. One night, I walked in and she was mid-sentence, saying, "No, he won't notice." She jumped when she saw me. "Who won't notice what?" I asked. "Oh," she said, eyes wide. "Just talking to Tara about the venue layout for the mixer. I meant the caterer. She's worried he'll mess up the layout." Tara is her coworker. She's also the most organized person I've ever met. She would have caught a typo in a spreadsheet from 10 feet away. And they weren't planning a mixer. At least not one she had ever mentioned. I didn't call her out, but I remembered. Then came the trainings. She started booking whole weekends for professional development. Some seminar in the city, always with vague names like Brand Forward 2024 or Client Flow Accelerator. I asked if I could come to one, maybe meet her colleagues afterward for dinner. She gave me that smile. The one that looks real from a distance but not up close. "It's super boring," she said. "Lots of spreadsheet workshops and vendor pitch sessions. You'd hate it." She left one Saturday with a suitcase and came back Sunday night with a tan line on her ring finger. I don't know why that detail stuck with me, but it did. Then I remembered a random Monday, maybe 3 weeks before the cafe. She came home in a great mood, laughing, talking fast, excited about a new client. I asked what had her so jazzed. She said the company was launching a men's accessory line, and they were giving out samples to build familiarity. 2 days later, she brought home an engraved pen I hadn't seen before. Gold clip. Fancy. I picked it up while sorting the mail. "You like it?" she asked. They gave me a few branded items, but the pen had no brand name. Just 3 initials. Not hers. Not mine. J.H. It didn't mean much then. Now it felt like a punch. I started keeping a notes file on my phone. Just a simple list. Dates, receipts, things she said. I didn't even know what I was building. Maybe just trying to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't just in my head. Because once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. And it's not just about cheating. It's about the gaslighting. The rewriting of the truth. She'd make me feel guilty for asking questions. "Why are you so suspicious all the time?" she'd say. "Do you even trust me?" And I did. God, I did. But trust doesn't survive on blind faith. It needs consistency. And the Madison in front of me was different from the Madison I married. Not just changed, rehearsed. The way her explanations slid off her tongue too quickly. How she always had a backup reason. How she turned every concern into a misunderstanding. It was like she was playing a role, and I was just the guy who wasn't supposed to notice the script. But I did. Every time she turned away when I entered the room. Every time she adjusted her blouse or tucked her phone deeper into her bag. I noticed. And the more I paid attention, the more the timeline unraveled. The cufflinks. The cologne. The cafe. They weren't anomalies. They were patterns. And I knew, whether she said it out loud or not, something had already shifted between us. The trust had been replaced with theater. And I wasn't buying my ticket anymore. By the time Friday rolled around, I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't speculating or collecting breadcrumbs. I wasn't in denial. Something inside me had crossed over. I was done wondering. I needed proof. Not for a courtroom. Not even for a confrontation. Just for me. Because living in the shadows of suspicion, tiptoeing around my own wife like she was a glass figurine I wasn't allowed to question, it was slowly *ling me. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed the moment where doubt would finally collapse into certainty. And I didn't have to wait long. That morning, Madison announced she'd be working late. Again. New client, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. They want to do a strategy dinner, kind of a creative brainstorm over pasta and wine. I told them it's not my ideal way to spend a Friday, but it's a big contract. Could be good for Q4. She said it while sipping coffee and scrolling her phone. Face down as usual. Notifications off. Where? I asked casually. She looked up. Just for a second. Riverside Inn, she said. You know, that place with the garden courtyard? They rent out private rooms for meetings sometimes. I nodded, kept my expression neutral. Sounds fancy. She smiled. It's all presentation. Half the job is making people feel like they're investing in something big. I gave her a quick kiss, grabbed my bag, and left for work. Except I didn't go to work. I drove across town, pulled into a shaded lot across from the Riverside Inn, and waited. I had cleaned out my car a few days earlier and installed a dashcam with wide-angle night vision. I told myself it was for safety, but deep down, I knew what I was doing. By 6:20 p.m., the sun was dipping low behind the buildings, and traffic had slowed to a Friday lull. At 6:42, Madison's car pulled in. Not alone. Jason's SUV followed behind, smooth and unhurried, like they'd done it a dozen times before. I didn't move. I barely breathed. They parked side by side, but not directly next to each other. Just enough distance to look unconnected, but still close enough to coordinate. Madison stepped out first. She was wearing the black heels. The ones she said were clearance. A soft navy blouse, earrings I hadn't seen before. Her makeup was heavier than usual, more dramatic, like she was going somewhere special. Her walk was slow, not rushed, like she wasn't late, like she belonged there. Jason got out next. Button-down shirt, sleeves rolled, casual confidence in his stride. He held up something, a keycard. Madison smiled and nodded. They walked in together. No hesitation, no awkwardness, just comfort, familiarity. They took one keycard. One. At that moment, something inside me broke. Not in a loud, messy way. Not with yelling or tears. Just a quiet crack. The kind that happens when something inside finally aligns with reality. They disappeared through the lobby doors, and I sat there, motionless, hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the moment. I could have followed them, could have walked in and made a scene, but that wasn't what I needed. I needed the facts, and the dashcam got them all. The whole sequence. Their cars. The timestamp. The door. The keycard. Everything. I stayed for another 40 minutes, unsure what I was even waiting for. At some point, I realized my palms were sweaty. I wiped them on my jeans, heart pounding in this strange, distant rhythm. It didn't feel like a movie anymore. It felt like slow, cold gravity pulling everything down. At 8:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. A new email. Subject line. Riverside Inn booking confirmation, room 214. It hit our shared inbox, probably auto-forwarded from her account without her realizing. Careless detail. I opened it. 2 guests. Dinner for 2 delivered to room 214 at 7:35 p.m. 2 house pastas. 1 bottle of Barolo. Additional request. Quiet room. Courtyard side. Signed, Jason H. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. This was it. No more mental gymnastics. No more maybes. No more running down memories with a flashlight hoping to find answers in the corners. They were upstairs, eating pasta, sipping wine, probably laughing at some inside joke that had formed during one of their client meetings. I stayed another hour, partly out of morbid curiosity, partly to prove to myself I could. When they came out, it was 9:56 p.m. They weren't trying to sneak. They weren't fumbling or glancing around or wearing masks of guilt. They looked normal. Jason had his blazer slung over his shoulder. Madison clutched her purse loosely in one hand, jacket folded over her arm. They walked close, but not quite touching. Still, the rhythm of their steps, the way they moved in sync, it screamed of people who knew each other's pace. When they reached their cars, they paused to talk. I couldn't hear them, but Madison laughed softly and tucked her hair behind her ear, the same way she used to when we were dating. He leaned in and said something. She smiled. And then they left. She didn't come home until 11:30. Said the meeting had gone long. Client wanted to debrief every little thing, she said, rolling her eyes, kicking off her shoes. They kept ordering wine. I was counting the minutes. I nodded, even smiled. Sounds exhausting. She poured herself water, went upstairs and took a long shower. While she was gone, I walked to her bag. It was unzipped, like she wasn't worried about hiding anything. Inside was a small envelope with the Riverside Inn's logo embossed in gold. I opened it. Room 214. Check-in time, 6:50 p.m. Check-out, same day. No overnight, just a few hours. No toothbrush, no makeup bag, no pretense of getting ready in the room. Also inside the bag, the receipt for the dinner. Same order, same time, same signature, Jason H. And an empty velvet box. The same kind I saw at the cafe. The cufflinks, gone. I walked upstairs, past the bathroom door, past the faint sound of running water, and stood in the doorway of our bedroom. The bed had been made. Not just made, tucked, staged, as if she was trying to present order in a place where nothing felt steady anymore. On the bathroom counter, beside her skincare, was a single wineglass. It wasn't from our set. It didn't match anything in the house. I picked it up, traced the rim with my finger. A faint fingerprint. Lipstick stain in the shade she said she only wore for events. I set it down and sat on the edge of the bed. Not thinking, not planning, just absorbing. It was over. Not the marriage. Not yet. But the denial. The confusion. The part of me that kept hoping I was wrong. She came out of the bathroom 10 minutes later, hair damp, robe on. You okay? She asked, drying her face with a towel. Yeah, I said, just tired. She nodded, walked past me, and climbed into bed. Me too, she whispered. Long week. She turned away and flicked off the light. I sat in the dark for a long time. I wasn't tired. I was awake in every way that mattered. And I finally saw her for who she was. There's no dramatic music when you decide to walk away from your life. No thunderclap, no lightning bolt. Just a quiet moment when the weight becomes too much, and you stop pretending it's something you can carry. For me, it was the next morning. Madison was still asleep when I got up. Curled on her side, hand tucked under her pillow like she had no idea the ground had shifted beneath us. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. I made coffee the way I always did. Measured out the beans. Let the grinder hum. Let the water boil. The routine felt hollow, mechanical, like I was playing a role I no longer fit in. I poured a cup but didn't drink it. I just sat at the kitchen island, staring at the steam. Around 8:15, she wandered in wearing one of my old college hoodies, yawning like nothing had changed. Morning, she said, voice soft. Morning. She leaned in for a kiss. I let her. I didn't flinch. I didn't turn away. But I didn't kiss her back. If she noticed, she didn't say anything. She sipped her coffee and started scrolling through her phone. I watched her from across the counter, how easily she smiled at something on the screen. How light her voice sounded when she talked about a sale on flights to Charleston. She asked if I'd want to go somewhere warm in December. You and me. A reset. I nodded. She smiled, as if the idea had been well received. As if her little secret hadn't already scorched the earth we were standing on. After she left for work, I started packing. I didn't touch everything. Just what mattered. A laptop, a few shirts, my running shoes, the external drive with all my documents. I tossed it all into a duffel bag and zipped it slowly, like the sound itself made the decision real. I wasn't sure where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. Not in this house. Not in that bed. Not across from her at the dinner table pretending to ask how her day was when I already knew. The house itself felt unfamiliar, like it had been staged for someone else. Rooms too clean. Cabinets rearranged. Her side of the closet suddenly missing half the things I remembered. When had she done that? When had she started quietly pulling pieces of herself away, out of my reach? In the bedroom, the sheets had been changed again. Too neatly, tucked like a hotel bed. The comforter pulled tight. I stood over it and didn't recognize a thing. Even the pillows looked different, swapped out maybe, or replaced with something newer, softer, untouched. I went to the bathroom and opened the cabinet. My things were still there. Razor, deodorant, half-used cologne I hadn't touched in weeks. But hers had multiplied. New brands, new scents, tiny bottles that looked like samples from a spa. That's when I saw it. A miniature bottle of body wash with the Riverside Inn logo on it. I picked it up. It was half empty. Next to it, a matching lotion. She didn't even bother to hide them. I went to her side of the nightstand and opened the drawer. Inside was a folded receipt. Room 214. Same date. Same names. Underneath it, tucked into the back, was the cufflink box. Empty. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the box in one hand and the receipt in the other. My chest felt heavy, not like a weight, but like a hollow space expanding. Like someone had reached in and scooped something vital out of me. No confrontation. No shouting match. No final dramatic betrayal. That wasn't how I wanted this to go. I just wanted distance. Clarity. So I took it. I disabled the shared accounts first. Joint calendar, shared Google Drive, password manager. Then I logged out of every sync device and changed my recovery keys. I pulled cash from our emergency fund and took the backup debit card we kept hidden in the file cabinet, just in case. I wrote her a note. Not angry, not poetic, just facts. I need time. Please don't contact me. I left the keys on the kitchen table next to her coffee mug. The one with the chip in the handle that she always refused to throw away. By noon, I was on the road. I didn't have a destination. I just pointed the car south and drove. The silence was different now. Not ominous or accusing. Just clean. Honest. The kind that wraps around you like a blanket after too much noise. I turned off my phone and threw it in the glove box. No notifications. No explanations. Just miles. At some point around sunset, I pulled off the interstate and into a dusty little motel off I-10. Neon sign flickering. Office door creaking. A bored teenager behind the front desk handed me a room key without looking up from his phone. Room 9. The carpet smelled faintly of bleach. The bedspread had that weird generic pattern that feels like it's been there since 1998. I sat down on the edge of the bed and exhaled. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was lying. I wasn't pretending to be okay. I wasn't pretending to be married to someone who still loved me. I opened my laptop, connected to the spotty Wi-Fi, and backed up everything to the cloud: photos, documents, **TS. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like it was narrating the last chapter of a book I didn't remember agreeing to be in. Then I opened a blank file. No title. No outline. Just a blinking cursor and the knowledge that whatever came next was mine to write. I lay back on the bed, hands folded across my chest, staring at the ceiling fan clicking in slow, lazy circles. The air conditioner rattled in the corner like it was doing its best. I closed my eyes and listened to the hum of the highway beyond the parking lot. The betrayal wasn't what broke me. It was the performance. The carefully edited days. The constructed smiles. The choreography of omission. She had built a new life in the spaces between our old one, and expected me not to notice. Or worse, to accept it. I didn't know what the next step looked like. I wasn't sure if I'd call a lawyer or try counseling or just vanish for a while. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back to pretending. I couldn't keep sleeping next to someone who left pieces of another man on her skin. I couldn't keep being a prop in a life that had moved on without me. And so, in a motel room with peeling wallpaper and a vending machine down the hall that only took quarters, I let it all fall away. I let the marriage die, quietly, without fireworks, without tears, just me, the dark, and the realization that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the only strength you have left. I thought leaving would be the hardest part, but it wasn't. The hardest part was realizing that what I left behind was only half the story. I stayed at that motel off I-10 for 3 days, ate vending machine snacks, drank gas station coffee, and stared at my ceiling like it might spell out what I was supposed to do next. I didn't call anyone. I didn't check social media. I just let the silence breathe. On the 4th day, a text came through, blocked number. No name, just 2 words. She's missing. First, I thought it was a scam, some phishing scheme, or maybe Jason playing games. But then, a minute later, another message arrived. She isn't who you think. My stomach dropped. Something about the tone, flat, factual, hit different. Not emotional, not dramatic, just precise. I unlocked the old burner phone I kept in my duffel, the one I used for 2-factor codes. No contacts, just a few backup logins. I forwarded the number and waited. That same night, while lying in bed with the glow of the TV casting shadows on the walls, I saw it. A breaking news alert at the bottom of the screen. Dallas woman reported missing under unusual circumstances. I sat up straight, grabbed the remote, and unmuted. The news anchor's voice was calm, too calm for what I was hearing. Clara Evans, an account director at a Dallas-based marketing agency, was last seen leaving a co-worker's apartment late Sunday evening. Neighbors report seeing her enter her vehicle around 11 p.m., but she hasn't been heard from since. Authorities are urging anyone with information to come forward. And then came the photo. I dropped the remote. It was her. Madison. Except the caption didn't say Madison Reynolds. It said Clara Evans. Same face. Same soft features. Same delicate silver earrings I gave her for our 3rd anniversary. Her smile, the one I used to think was mine, beamed out from the screen like it had never lied a day in its life. Clara Evans. I stood there, mouth dry, mind frozen. I replayed the clip twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. But there it was. Her job title, her workplace, her last known address, an apartment I'd never seen. I sat on the edge of the bed, the TV droning on behind me, and tried to breathe. Had she been living 2 lives? A backup identity? A cover? Or was I the second life? My hands shook as I opened my laptop and started digging. I searched the name, the photo, the firm. The agency's site listed Clara Evans as a senior account director, employed since 2021. The bio mentioned a degree from a university she'd never talked about, a list of clients I'd never heard of, and a background in political communications. There were even press releases quoting her. But none of it matched the woman I married. No mention of her maiden name. No trace of the family members she'd introduced me to over the years. Her so-called brother, Derek, non-existent in the digital world. Her mother's Facebook profile? Deleted. Every search I ran led me deeper into fog. It wasn't just a name. It was a full rewrite. I dug until morning, piecing together what I could. Some addresses. A registered LLC. A short-term lease in Fort Worth under CE Solutions. The dots refused to connect into anything clear. It was like trying to reconstruct a shattered mirror from memory. By dawn, I hadn't slept. I was wide awake in a world I no longer recognized. That afternoon, the motel clerk slipped an envelope under my door. No return address, just my first name handwritten. Inside was a photograph. It was Madison or Clara, standing beside a nondescript silver car. A late-model sedan, Texas plates, nothing flashy. She wore jeans, a denim jacket, sunglasses. No smile. On the back of the photo was a faint fingerprint, smudged but distinct, as if she had pressed it herself before sealing the envelope. Underneath the print was a short note, typed, "Trust no one, especially Jason, especially Roscoe. Follow instructions only." If you're reading this, it's already started. Who was Roscoe? What instructions? I turned the envelope over, nothing else. But tucked between the pages was a thin strip of paper with a 6-digit code and an address scribbled in pen. Post Office Number 440, Box 231B. Pickup, Friday at 2 p.m. It was already Friday, 11:43 a.m. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys and left everything else behind. The drive took just over 2 hours. Long stretches of flat highway, dry air, and a rising sense of dread. I kept checking my mirrors. A dark SUV followed me for 10 miles before turning off. Probably nothing, but it didn't feel like nothing. When I arrived, the post office was small, barely more than a storefront. The kind of place that sold packing peanuts, overpriced tape, and photocopies. A lone woman at the counter asked what I needed. "I have a box pickup," I said, sliding the slip forward. She didn't ask for ID, just nodded slowly, turned around, and came back with a padded envelope. It was heavier than expected. Not bulky, but weighted, like it contained something sharp. I signed for it, walked out, got back in the car, locked the doors. Inside the envelope were 3 things: prepaid flip phone, no contacts, no call history. A USB drive, labeled in permanent marker, in case of failure. A second photograph. This one wasn't of her. It was of Jason, leaning over a table, talking to someone blurred in the background. It looked like a restaurant or conference room. He wasn't smiling. His face was caught mid-sentence. Behind him, on the wall, was a framed document, too blurry to read but official-looking, scrawled in ink across the top. "He's not who you think either." I didn't know what that meant. Spy? Agent? Fraud? All I knew was that the man I thought was a harmless neighbor was now part of something deeper, something layered. I turned on the prepaid phone. There was one saved text in the inbox. "Wait for instructions. Stay moving. If you stop, they'll find you." I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, unsure whether I was losing my mind or just finally waking up. Had Madison, Clara, been using me? Was I cover? Collateral? Or was she running from something even she couldn't explain? The name, the car, the warning, it all screamed danger. But somewhere under the chaos was something familiar. Her handwriting, her fingerprint, her need to protect or maybe just to warn. She was gone. But the trail she left behind was deliberate. She wanted me to follow it. And something told me if I didn't, I might be next. I returned home to an eerie silence. Madison Clara was gone. Her clothes, photos, even her scent had vanished. On the kitchen counter sat an open safe I'd never seen. Inside, stacks of cash, a burner phone, and a note in her handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means things went wrong. Don't trust Jason. Don't trust Roscoe. And don't stay in the house." The phone lit up, showing a location. I left immediately. The texts came next. Coded, shifting numbers, meeting points that led nowhere. I spotted Jason's SUV more than once. Always nearby, never close. I changed my name, sold the house, disappeared into another state. Madison's betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was tactical. A cover for something darker. I never found out who she really was. But I learned to stop living by trust and start living by truth. And never stay in one place too long.